Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Y'all, this is another episode of Kingdom Commerce. I am your host, Cooper Peterson, and today we will be interviewing one of the top leaders in the state of Wisconsin, according to Titan 100. He's a Titan 100 Hall of Famer, Patrick Booth, CEO of CCB Technologies, a father, a Christian, and the host of the Impact of Leadership podcast. We're going to dive into what it means to lead from a Christian worldview, lead for God's glory, some of the challenges, the misconceptions, the lessons that young people need to understand about when it comes to being a leader. We'll talk about what it means to be a leader in the family. We'll talk about what it means to lead when things aren't going well. I'll say it again. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Leadership is for all entrepreneurs because all entrepreneurs are going to have to lead. If anything, they're going to have to lead their families. They're going to lead themselves. And when they scale, they'll have to lead the people that are under them. God uses entrepreneurs for His glory. I strongly believe that. And God uses and lifts up people to be leaders in their communities who are entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to dive into what that means more with Patrick Booth. So without further ado, this is Kingdom Commerce, where we do commerce the kingdom way. And today's episode starts now. Patrick, look, it's great to have you on for an episode of Kingdom Commerce. Look, I met you, I think it was 3 weeks ago at Cedar Hills Impact Conference, and I mentioned the Impact Conference on the podcast before, but one of the things I loved about the Impact Conference in particular was the amount of amazing people I met. And I don't think God puts people together for no reason. And so Patrick was, we were in one of the same sessions together, and I think you pretended to be one of the advisors to the master's program. You snuck in there, but you were just dropping truth bombs on everybody. And so I was like, man, I got to introduce myself to Patrick. Made a connection. I feel like he was already mentoring me. I think in the hallway, I just was like, wow, this guy has some really solid advice, and I already feel like I've learned so much. And believe it or not, I said I don't think the Lord puts people together without a reason. I was traveling, and we were talking about this. I was traveling to go meet a friend, and in Wisconsin, where as I mentioned earlier, you were top 100 CEO executive, the Titan top 100 in the Wisconsin area. And so I was traveling to Wisconsin to go see a friend. And as I was driving in my vehicle, I was like, man, we got the podcast scheduled with Patrick. Oh, shoot, I need to get him the questions. And I'm driving, and I look over, and I see this sign that says Impact off the side of the road. I'm like, wait a second. That's very similar to Patrick's podcast, the Impact of Leadership. And I remember that he said he was from Wisconsin. So I text him, find out we're about a half hour away. We meet up, met his dog, his kids.
Yeah.
And so look, Patrick, it's amazing that we were able to see each other just yesterday. Enjoyed hanging out with you and your family. But I want to dive into leadership. Frankly, it's one of those things that when I was, I guess, it's sort of been a cliche word to me, frankly, leadership. People talk about it all the time. They throw it around. You got to be a good leader. You got to be a servant leader. You need to lead your family. You need to lead this, lead that. And I think it's sort of been caught up in there's just so many different perspectives, and it's become cliche. But as I've been maturing and growing older and sort of on my own now, I've been understanding how important it really is to understand what it means to be a leader. You have the Impact of Leadership podcast, and really excited to sort of get your perspective. But hey, Patrick, how's it going?
It's good. I think that's the quietest I've ever been in a meeting. And I appreciate being here, Cooper. I mean, you did a great job explaining how we got here. Meeting each other 3 weeks ago. I did not sneak into the advisory council. Just to be fair, I was invited as a guest. I've snuck into other things. That one I was actually invited to, and it was awesome because I was in your I was in your session, and I thought, oh, I have nothing to offer. I mean, for MBA, focused individuals like you, and I'm like, I don't have an MBA, so I'm like, what am I going to say? But there was at the end there was this. Is there any other leadership advice you'd like to give? And I think I started giving off some stuff, and then you found me in the hallway, which I was really grateful for, and we just hit it off. So it is crazy. It absolutely is crazy unless you're a believer, and we are, and we know God is the master networker of all.
Absolutely.
And so here we are. Yesterday, you're at my house because you're visiting a friend in Wisconsin, and there's this connection. But 3 weeks ago, we didn't even know who we were, each other,
Absolutely.
and I just love that that God can connect people together, and I've seen it throughout my life. I have stories that are unbelievable of how God just brings people together, and it's amazing when you meet somebody as a believer. It could be on the golf course, it could be at a conference, it could be at a university, and all of a sudden you have this connection because of the Lord being this common ground. Um, and then it feels like you've known each other forever. And I think that's what we got here,
Yeah,
Cooper, is we got two
exactly.
guys that love leadership, love business, but most of all love the Lord. And then we just connected. And I think it's pretty freaking cool that you were able to come see Daisy, my dog, and my kids and my wife at the house yesterday. I think that was awesome to meet your friends too. So cool.
That was so great. And look, Patrick, I want to dive into leadership in particular because
Mhm.
obviously that's what you specialize in. I think you're on episode like 156 or 157
I'm
of
up.
the
Yeah, we're
impact of
right up
leadership.
there. We're right up there. Yep.
You've been doing it for a while. One of the questions I ask a lot, sometimes to a fault, but it's the question why. My parents, I asked that to my parents a lot. They told me I should be a lawyer because I loved arguing with them when I was a kid, So, but it's important because
Sure.
time is our most valuable resource,
Yeah.
and where we spend it, we spend our time on the things that we care about.
Sure.
And you spent a lot of time on the impact of leadership. We went to the Impact Conference. There's a common
Mhm.
theme here, but why the impact of leadership conference? Maybe give some backstory on yourself. What
Yeah.
has been sort of formational in you putting your energy to want to sort of prepare leaders to have that impact?
So I'm a little bit older than you. I graduated in 2000 from my university that I attended. And, when I got into business, I didn't know what to expect. I thought, okay, if you just work hard and get people to like you, it just flows and it helps. You definitely have to do things like working hard and connecting well with people. But there's a whole nother level of leadership that I didn't truly understand until I got into it in 2005, 2006. And then I didn't get my first executive role until 2007. And that's where I actually had like a team of 23 people reporting to me. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, like, what is this? And the impact of leadership, which is our leadership podcast, the reason we started that, and I say we, is a gentleman by the name of Steve Shear. He is my VP of Sales and Marketing now, but he was my VP of Sales, and he had just got into this role, and he started devouring tons and tons of leadership books and podcasts. And I don't think I even had listened to a podcast at that time. And this is back in 2018, and we went to a conference and I was inspired by how much I learned by listening to these great leaders just talk about what it means to empower your team. What does it mean to hold people accountable? I mean, things I
Mm,
knew, but didn't hear it as well as I did in this conference. And so Steve was like telling me everything he's been learning. I'm like, how did you get here? And he's like, well, I didn't have a choice. He goes, as a new leader, yeah, you were there mentoring me, but I needed more because
mm,
I needed to know what else you didn't know, but also what did I want to do in my own style. And so with that, we said other people need to hear this. I said, you have so much knowledge. How do we share this with the world? And it wasn't about making money. It was about let's get this knowledge out there to help leaders. Steve's heart was help other leaders that are starting out in leadership to understand what leadership's all about. And then he's like, Patrick, what do you want to focus on? And mine was, I want to help leaders not burn out because I'm kind
mm,
of feeling burnt out at this point. I had been doing it for over a decade. I had had good moments, I had low moments, And I was like, man, I don't know if I was made to be a leader. I mean, I thought I was, but when I look at my track history, I don't know. So I'm like, if we can help leaders not burn out and help them understand that they're not alone, then we got something. So between his take and my take, it was the so how do the bookends? How do we help the new young leaders coming up? How do we help the veteran leaders who are getting tired or burnt out? And that's why we started the Impact of Leadership.
Dude, Patrick, I love that. I love that. And it's very similar to the mission of Kingdom Commerce, equipping and empowering entrepreneurs, encouraging entrepreneurs for the purpose specifically of succeeding and glorifying God, right, in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I think we're on a very similar journey here. Albeit you're a lot farther along, but I love that because it really is in the name of your podcast. It's impact. How do we impact others and influence others? Talk to me about, from a Christian perspective, leadership, impact. Why is it important for Christians to understand how to be good leaders? And what does the Bible say, or what Bible passages in particular maybe have been influential in your understanding of why it's important to really develop and understand how to be a leader for God?
Yeah, and that is a great question. So I love the fact that Kingdom Commerce is about giving people, leaders, Christian leaders, the understanding of how do you be that and a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm still learning. And let me say that I have not figured it out completely. So but I will tell you a couple things that really has stood out to me. One, my parents started the shirt I'm wearing is CCB Technology. That is what I do uh, all day long, along which is an IT services company, managed services company. But my dad started CCB. My mom did with the foundational verse of Proverbs 3:5 through 6, which is, and I want to make sure I get this right, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths.
That
Oh, look,
is, I don't know if the camera can see it, but
it's a
that
little
is
blurred, but I
like
can see it. Yeah,
that
gotcha.
is my
Yeah.
verse that I literally have here. I mean,
It,
it's
well,
one that
it,
my parents gave
and
it to me when
that's
I was a young kid.
so see here another connection, right? My dad and my mom lived that out to me as a young person in their house, as their son, watching them build this business. And now, the whole point was we didn't know if we were going to last a year, 2 years. Well, now here we are in our 33rd year of business.
Wow.
And it's been by God's ways, his true ways of making our path straight. Because there's been it's the road to on leadership is bumpy. Okay. I have this crazy cowboy statue behind me because it was my dad's, and I wanted to remember him as he's passed now, but I wanted it in my office because when I asked him, why do you have that? Because you're not a cowboy. And he was like, Patrick, leadership is hard. It's gonna try to buck you off the horse all the time. And he goes, you got to know
Wow.
what you're grounded in. You got to know how to stay on. But I know my dad. He and I both have these hearts to want to connect and symbolize with the things that give us inspiration, like
Yeah.
a cowboy on a bucking horse, or my Rocky poster that's on the other side. You can't see it right now because I know what it means to show up every day and to have to really fight hard. But the key to it is because anybody can do that. The key
Right.
is how do you do it well, and how do you do it in a way that it has integrity and humility, and you can still be a man, a warrior, a woman who's out there breaking records. It's You can still do it with grace and humility when you have
Mm,
Christ in your heart. And
I love
my
that.
and that's what my dad taught me was, how do you but you got to seek him first. You've got to seek him in your plans, otherwise you could easily go off course.
Seek first his kingdom, right?
Yep, that's it.
Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. Yesterday, we were talking a little bit, and you mentioned to me how important and how when you're a leader in a business, the devil is going to come after you. And there's things that you mentioned that one of the reasons you started the podcast was because leaders or young leaders sometimes don't really understand what it's going to take. And they don't
Yeah.
understand the challenges, the things that Satan is going to throw at them. would you mind diving into maybe some of your personal
Sure.
experiences? You mentioned there are a couple deals or things
Yeah.
that could have
Yeah.
been made,
Yeah.
but it was a question of integrity.
It is. Absolutely. Glad to share. Um, my dad, when I was in high school, my dad, and I think history repeats itself. So it's a great opportunity to learn from it, or you will fail as others have before, right? So my dad brought me into high school, and he had given an opportunity in our book of business. The way we started is we worked with nonprofits, and there was only about 25 companies in the United States that could sell to 501c3 organizations. As long as they proved that they had a 501c3, we could sell to them. Well, there was an opportunity in high school. My dad brought me into his office and he said, Patrick, there is like $1 million deal on the table right now. The problem is, this is not a non for profit. Now,
Mm.
nobody was policing this program. It was literally integrity of you get to police it yourself. And this would have been by far the largest deal we had ever seen in the history of the company at this point. And my dad said, I'm I can't do it because it doesn't fall into the categories that have been given to us of criteria of who can get this discount. And the person asking him to do it was like, nobody will find out. Nobody will find out. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Wow.
And my dad knew there was a good chance nobody would find out, but he couldn't live with himself after dedicating the company to the Lord, watching the Lord bless him, giving God honor and thankfulness. Why would he abandon that now? I said, Dad, why are you telling me this? And he's like, I'm telling you this. One, you need to know because you're going to face something like this someday, probably in whatever career you do. I'm in high school, didn't know I was going to be working in the same business. And then two, he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to say yes if I don't have accountability. I'm afraid. And so I remember being a high schooler, like, first of all, I was like, this is $1 million. Like, I mean, to me, it could have been $1 billion at that time. I mean, who knows, right? I'm just like, this is crazy. And I'm like, but I was also walked away and I'm like, man, that's my dad. That's my dad who is teaching me and mentoring me. And I didn't realize how important that was until, man, it probably was 15 years later. I was now the president, and my VP comes in and goes, Patrick, I got to talk to you about a deal. It's probably going to make
Wow.
about $300,000 for us in profit. I, the guy wants us to compromise our beliefs. They're not a nonprofit. What do you think? And I right away, 2 seconds, I was like, the answer is no. And I said, the answer is no because I've seen this before. I've seen this with my dad. And my dad had taught me you don't compromise your integrity for the money. And my VP of sales, who's now my president, Logan, said, I already knew you were going to say no, but I told the guy that I was going to come talk to you about it. So I just wanted to make sure that I talked to you about it. And he goes, that's already fine. I'm already ready to say no to the guy. And Logan's a believer as well, and strong believer, and again, accountability, having people around you. So I've seen that money. That's why God talks about money. There's a lot of blessings with money, but you can't lose your focus of who you serve first. It's God. It's not money. And God will bless you. I can't say that your promise, this is not a health and wealth. Oh, if you obey God, you're going to have everything perfect. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is you have a responsibility to honor the Lord first if you're a believer of Jesus Christ, and let God take care of the rest. And that's what we've seen in our business. And it's not been easy, but we do it every day because God gives us another opportunity every day.
I love that. I love that story. And I also think one of the really profound pieces of that story is that your father, like he was a leader to you. I mean, he didn't. I guess you said he didn't know that you would be, the CEO of the company. Maybe he did. Maybe he had suspicions, or maybe not. But he still took the opportunity to say, "Look, son, this is one of the challenges that you probably will face something similar in your life." I imagine it was so much easier to say no because you could look up to that person, your father, who did it before you, and that was probably made it so much of an easier option for you. So I love the aspect of there's Christian leadership in fathers, there's Christian leadership in business owners as well, and you hit it right on the head. I mean, what it talks about in the gospel is that Jesus talks about the parable of the camel in the eye of the needle. It's harder for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. And it's talking about the love of money, the love of riches. And so I think sometimes for entrepreneurs who are just starting off, they're like, I don't have to worry about that now. I'm just trying to make it from day to day, right?
Yeah,
I'm just trying
sure,
to
sure.
survive. I'm not worried about that. But that's something I really love, that perspective of, it may be, maybe it's $1 million that you have to say no to, or maybe it's something else that you have to, that's maybe it's $1,000 when you're starting off.
Sure.
The integrity of it is massive. And that's at the end of the day, it's something that if we're faithful to God, if we trust the Lord, it's not about health, wealth, prosperity, but it's about serving Him at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And there's some things that are more intangible than the tangibles of wealth that God uses to bless others.
Yep.
And right, even it's like leaders who go to the conferences and they mentor younger people. I mean, that's one of the things where you didn't have to go to the conference. I mean, that's
Mm,
you flew out on your dime. You flew out
yeah,
on your but you're a leader even though you weren't a speaker, but you've been a leader to the younger people and mentoring those people there. And so that's what I appreciate about leadership is it's not just it's about the integrity
yeah,
in terms of the tangibles when it comes to money, but some of the intangibles of leading others in terms of how are you treating them, how are you mentoring
yeah.
them. And that's something I really appreciate
The,
about you in particular.
Thank you. With the word mentorship, it's funny you would say that because that's what I was thinking. If there's a lesson out of that story is I fortunately had my dad as a mentor and he wasn't perfect. All right. I'm never gonna act like I'm perfect. My dad never acted like he was perfect. We have flaws, but
You're not
he
perfect,
did.
Patrick.
No, no,
Oh
just ask my
man.
wife and my
All right.
kids. Trust me.
End the
So
podcast.
yeah, no, but my wife, my dad knew to teach me that in that moment. He knew, and I'm grateful for that. And I would encourage anybody out there, maybe you have a dad that did that. Maybe you don't. I would encourage you though, find a mentor, a Christian mentor that can help you who's been there just a little bit before you because they understand. And again, it's a gift to be able to have somebody in your life like that. I'm seeking out a new mentor now that my dad has passed, and it was a void for me for now a couple years. But it's amazing how God can connect people together. So, but I would just encourage you to find a mentor because it will make a difference to talk through these things. Business is hard, but if you can have a group of people, even an individual that you can pray with, discuss these things, go to. Do not keep it to yourself. If there's anything I will tell you, that is how Satan tries to trick any leader. Keep it isolated so you don't nobody knows because you're embarrassed. You don't want to tell people about what you're struggling with, or maybe that is Satan's way to win every single time is to keep you isolated where you think you have to hide it from people. Find people you can trust, people you can pour your heart out to, and most importantly, as my dad always said, pray first and give that to God, and then
Pray
have good
first
people
before you
around.
jump on the horse, right?
Hey, you better. It's going to be a bumpy ride, so I'd rather do it with God instead of without Him. So yeah, let's go. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
What are some of the you've gone and had this leadership role, CEO, CCB.
Mm-hmm.
What have been some of the misconceptions that I mean, obviously, probably one of them has been that I imagine the story you mentioned about having to say no to a deal. That's probably something that you didn't imagine you'd have to do when you were younger. But what were some other misconceptions that you had about leadership that now you're looking to encourage other people in the IOL Impact of Leadership podcast? What is,
Sure.
it's going back to our first question. What's that why? What's the
Yeah.
reason and what are you trying to help people see?
Yeah. Well, growth. I mean, for me, I love coaching. When I was younger, I thought I would be a teacher. Didn't know what type of teacher I was going to be, but I just wanted to give people a chance to A, be encouraged, and B, just know I got your back. Like I'm here to help you grow and get better. And I think if you have the right heart mindset of as a leader where you want to see people grow, I want people to break my records. And they have. When I gave the reins over as VP of sales to Logan, who literally has followed pretty much everywhere in my career. He has beat all my records, and I'm the one cheering for him. I'm like, hey, this is what I did. Don't do this. This was a mistake. Don't do that. Be better than me. That's a phrase I say. So I think one as a leader, if you really want to make an impact, I'd say, where's your heart? Forget the title. It, title doesn't make you a leader. It's how you show up every day and how you act, how you listen, how you are there for your people. That's what a leader is. It makes a big difference. And the thing that people don't understand, and I didn't, and I'm still figuring this out, is managing people is hard. It is hard. I thought it was going to be easy. I thought as long as I come in and I give this hoorah rah speech and I get everyone excited and I'm like, I believe in you. You believe in me. Let's go tear down everything. Let's conquer the world. Yeah, that works for a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with passion. I love passion. I'm a big guy on that. But you have to be able to be a manager day in and day out. I'm talking about managing on the hard days, the not fun days, the oh my gosh, we're in a bad situation and everyone's looking at me to make a decision. That's when leadership really shows up. And you have to understand, how committed are you? How committed are you to the team? And if you care about people and you care about growth and you do care about, being there with your people in the hard times, then you can realize that managing people is not easy, but it's worth it. Growth and success does not happen by accident. As we say on IOL, nobody drifts into excellence. Nobody, unless you're in a Walt Disney movie and you're floating down the lagoon and then you walk into, you land in this magical place. That's not real. If you want to be successful, if you want to achieve goals, you better be ready to put some work into it. But I also believe God is the one that blesses that work. And sometimes he has a different plan. Even though you worked hard, even though you've led well, sometimes God has a different plan. So just be ready for the ride, but know that you got to do it with God. So managing people is not easy, but it is worth it when you see growth happen. It's the best feeling.
No, I love that, because I think sometimes we can fall in the trap of measuring, and people in the Bible did it too, is measuring how they're actually doing, like physically. You had the person
Mm-hmm.
who had some sort of the illness, and the Pharisees, I believe, were saying, who sinned, him or his parents? And
Sure.
I believe you just said it was neither. I believe that's
Mm-hmm.
what he said. That made him the way that he was. And it's almost like we kind of use that same metric in our business success. Is why my business is doing bad? Is that because I sinned to make it bad, or my
Sure.
business is doing well? Did I sin?
Yeah.
Was I extra
I did
righteous
that Bible study
yesterday?
today. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I love
Yeah.
that, because what we're trying to accomplish here is that we're seeking to honor God, whether He decides to bless us in terms of prosperity, or if He
Mm-hmm.
decides to lead us down a different path. And I think when a leader is somebody, from my understanding, is somebody who's going to lead no matter which direction. You mentioned that some days are good, some days are bad, but the leader is going to be the one who
Yep.
stays strong and consistent during both the ups and the downs, whether it's going well
Mm-hmm.
or it's going poorly. And no, I absolutely love that. What would you say has been one of the biggest lessons? Because I think I mentioned this on one of my last episodes, but one of the things a mentor has always told me is he wants to be in the room with the people who have succeeded more and failed more than he has, because learning from them, learning how they succeeded and failed, that's wisdom, that's mentorship. If he's the
Mm-hmm.
smartest person in the room, he's in the wrong room. And
Sure.
so if you'd be willing to
Sure.
share maybe some of the lessons or things that you've learned in your experience, um, I do believe that that's part of being, sharing that experience is part of that mentorship.
Yeah, I'd love to. One of the things that I think recently I've learned over the last couple years, and it's kind of latched on to some of my my executives, is the phrase smell smoke. Now, what am I talking about? What I'm talking about in the illustration I have is follow your nose when you smell smoke. If you're observing as a leader and you're getting a sense that something is off, I'm like, my illustration was, let's say you're sitting on the couch and all of a sudden you're watching TV and you smell smoke. You're like, that's not normal. Something's off. Something's going on. My thing is, do you sit on the couch and wait for flames to start appearing? No, that's an option. You can do that. Fire is not your friend. That it is fire is going to burn you. Okay. But before fire breaks out, there's something called smoke, and it's a warning. So I would tell people, and this is the thing that I doubted myself early on as a leader. I was like, well, who am I? I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm probably am just overreacting. I'm probably not, it's probably fine. It's fine. I didn't trust my nose. And now that I've been doing this for a while, and I try to tell all leaders, follow your nose, follow your nose. Hey, worst case scenario, you smell smoke. Turns out it wasn't anything bad. It was just maybe a little small, little something, little spark that went off, whatever.
Just some popcorn in the microwave. That
Hey,
went a
yeah,
little bit
it's
too
not the
long,
worst thing. It's not the worst thing on earth. But what if it isn't? What if it isn't just smoke and it's actually something you can catch and put out before it turns the whole house into flames? So that's something I would say is make sure you use your nose, be smart. God gives us wisdom. Don't just ignore things. Ignoring problems do not solve problems. Okay. So that is,
that's
and
that's facts.
it is,
So
but
true.
I think a lot of times it's convenient. I don't want to deal with this today. Yeah, no kidding. Nobody was playing. I wasn't planning on dealing with this, but there's also a way to deal with it. And let me tell you where I have failed. I can give you 100 ways where I have failed. So I come home one day and I'm literally come in my house. And not only do I smell smoke, I see smoke like in my
Mm.
kitchen, like coming down the hallway of where my kitchen is. And I come around the corner and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Now, my daughter was cooking a pizza and she's like, Dad, it's fine. And I'm like, it's not fine. I can see smoke and I can, Now she was like, Dad, a little bit of cheese got dropped. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You need to relax. Well, that did not sit well with me in that moment because I was like, there's smoke. How about we talk about the fact that there's smoke in this house and why am I coming home? Anyways, my point is, I did not handle that well. I could have been like, hey, it's okay. I've done it too. I didn't. Instead, I was more focused on not feeling respected in the situation. And I look back at that, and my wife and I have talked about it because we joke sometimes where I'm like, is there smoke? Do you smell smoke? And she's like, oh my gosh, you and your smoke. And I'm like, no, it's true. I smell smoke. So anyways, but I learned, and I'd say it's fine to discover the problem. It's good that you discovered the problem. It's bad if you let your emotions take over. And I have had that happen to me all the time because I'm a passionate person. And what I've learned is if humility leads first, then you can handle yourself appropriately, even when others don't give you the respect that you deserve. And I've been reading this in my daily devotions, and I'm like, all right, God, I hear you. It makes sense. This is hard, especially for a guy like me. So I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to get better. But I would just encourage all of you, like, do it well. And do it well means hold people accountable, love them well, give good feedback when needed, but don't let your emotions take over when they challenge you and even maybe disrespect you. Go back to what the Lord asked us to do, which is lead with humility and just do it well. Don't let Satan trip you because you're probably doing a really good leadership moment. And this is an opportunity for you to make sure that you don't trip and fall. And again, I'll say it, be better than me. So hopefully that story encourages all of you, whether you're at home
Yeah.
or at work. It's leadership. So yeah.
No, it's almost as simple as that, right? Just as the leader, if you show the people that you're managing, or the people that work with you, and it could even be people that are, that you work with that aren't even your employees, but when they mess up,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to react? And it's tough. I mean, because this is your baby. This business is your baby. You put your blood, sweat, and tears. You spent late night hours doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The trap sometimes is that we feel entitled to
Sure.
perfection in a way. When someone else messes up, it's much easier for us to be harder on them than it is, sometimes it even is on us, because
Yeah,
we feel like
definitely.
it's almost a personal. It feels
It is.
personal in a way.
All
And,
right. So now, Cooper, now you're in my head. So I don't appreciate that. So it is. It is personal, and I've had people give me feedback of, Patrick, don't take it so personal. And I'm always like, how do I not take it personal when I but it's there's truth. There is really good truth in it of bring it down. Again, emotion and caring is wonderful. As I care about people well, I love people well, but that also means that does not give me the right to attack people when I'm disappointed. And this is something I have failed at a lot, and especially in an argument. Many people of wisdom have said this: attack the problem, not the person.
mm,
And I am trying to get better at this, because when you're in an argument, it's easy to throw all that knowledge that you know out the window because you start leading with emotion. And that emotion is not always good. And I would encourage anybody, just be patient. There's that, be quick to listen, slow to speak.
yes.
There's a reason God put that in there for us. And the other thing people have said is God's giving you two ears and one mouth. There's a
Yes,
reason for that too. There's a reason for
I've
that
heard
too.
that one before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When it no, it's something I really appreciate you bringing this up. You talk about the emotion, because owning a business, being an entrepreneur or a
Mm-hmm,
leader, certainly is emotional.
mm-hmm,
One of the things we talked about in one of our first conversations ever was family and being a
mm-hmm.
leader, or family and
Yeah.
being a business owner.
Mm-hmm,
And there's challenges, there's misconceptions that we have, but one of the things that I'm trying to understand is, as somebody who's looking to be an entrepreneur, how am I able, or how should I keep, say it's a tough day, right? Something doesn't go well, somebody drops the ball, and you're
mm-hmm,
trying to be a good leader, you're trying not to get upset, but it sticks with you a little bit.
mm-hmm.
And you come home from work and you have the
Yeah.
family that you care about and love. What are some of the things that you've learned to keep and almost compartmentalize and not let that bleed through to the people that
Mm-hmm,
you care about the most? Because you come home and you're tired, and you put a lot of effort into the day, and it's, sometimes I know, people, they slip up when they get home. It's the people they care about the
mm-hmm.
most. What have been some of the things that you've learned, to be a leader both in your business but also when you get home?
Yeah. Well, good thing we have 2 hours for this podcast, because I can probably let you know for the next 2 hours all the things I've done wrong on this. There's so many things. Let me start with you have to put your family. So God is first, your spouse is second, your family is third. Okay. And I say that, and I'm not saying I got it perfect, so people can critique me all day long and be like, wait, where's, I'm just going to tell you this is what I've done: God first, spouse second, family third. And the most important part that I've learned in this is my wife does need me to come home and be the leader at home that I am and have been for the last 8 hours when I was at work. And
Mm,
that was something that I was tired, and I came home, and my wife and I have gone through many sessions of counseling, marriage counseling, and I'm not ashamed of that. I would tell anybody it's really good to be with other couples that can be mentors, but also sometimes you just need to do some counseling, and that's preventative maintenance. And some of it is we got stuff that's broken and we need to fix this, right? And so
Mm.
one of the things that came up was I want Patrick, my wife Lori would say, I want Patrick to be the leader at home that he is at work. I see how much he cares about helping people grow at work. I want him to be able to help our kids grow at
Mm.
home in the Lord. And I was like, I teach Sunday school. I mean, that you know, and this is one of those things where I was not making Bible study a priority. And I'd go to meetings at 6 in the morning. I'd go work out at 6 in the morning. I don't like to wake up early, but going and doing Bible study at 6 in the morning was like, no. I'll go to a meeting if it means it helps me close business. I'll go to the workout, facility if it means helping me get in shape because that helps my body and all that. But to spend time with the Lord at 6 in the morning, I was like, what is that? And I've learned that is the best part of my morning now. I look forward to it, even though I'm half asleep because mornings are not a friend to me early. Getting time in the Lord with the Lord has been great, but it was my wife. It was my wife who held me accountable. It was my wife, and as much as I didn't like it, and that's leadership as well. Holding people accountable and helping them understand where they need to grow. It's not always going to be fun. It doesn't always mean it's going to be received well. But if you come from the right heart perspective, people will listen, and it might take time. So be patient. And that's what my wife was with me, patient. And again, we had other people around us talking to us and encouraging me. And I really, honestly, at the end of the day, I needed to stop making excuses and just said, if I really want to be a leader at work, then I need to also be a leader at home. And that's another thing I talk about quite a lot on my Impact Leadership podcast, which is there's one bucket. And I got that from one of my coworkers. I know everyone's like, separate work, separate home. You can't. It's one bucket, it's one heart. How do you separate the two? You can't. And so I believe leaving a legacy in both business and home starts with understanding your role as a leader in both and be aware of it. One of the key other things besides coming home every night and intentionally putting work to aside and really engaging and being present with my kids and asking them questions. Now, that doesn't make it easy either. I'll just tell you that. Kids are like employees. Sometimes you ask them questions and you don't get a lot of response back, but you keep asking the questions, and some days they're really talkative and some days they're not, and so one of the things I realized though is I still have a duty to show up and be there. And one of the things that I had to learn as well was be present, not just on every night, but also on like vacations, because it was easy for me to be on my phone. It's still a major distraction, when you're checking on things because you care. But there is a point you have to separate yourself. And my wife challenged me on that. She's like, Patrick, I need you to be present when you're with us, and not just on your laptop or on your phone thinking about business. And I understand there's a lot of things that fall on you because that was my excuse. Lori, if I miss something, then everyone's waiting on me. But I was again putting the company first over my family.
Mm.
And I would say you got to be able to have separation. And I understand the stress, but I'll just tell you for your sake and your family's sake, you got to be able to put down the laptop, put down the cell phone, just be able to be present with your family because they need you. And
It's your first ministry.
it is. And, making the time for God, that's why I said first, start your day off right, get in God's word. It does help. It really, really does. And then, love your spouse well. My parents prayed every day together. They did not have a perfect marriage, not even close, but I saw them pray together. I saw them give things to the Lord.
Mm.
Lori and I do the same thing. We pray together. That's something as much as I saw it, it's easy to get into your own busy schedule. It's something that we are still pursuing though together. And I think it's by God's grace that he gives you marriage. And if he has a different plan and you stay single, that's fine too. But it is an opportunity to really understand God's love and sacrifice when you have a gift of a spouse, because you
Yeah.
have to find a way to, you know, put the other one first, and to understand how Christ loves us,
Mm,
sacrificial. It's great, and then love your kids well. You have 18 years, 18 summers. My wife says 18 summers. That's it, and then they're
yeah.
independent, and that goes by so fast. As I have a freshman daughter now at Cedarville, it's crazy how fast it goes by.
Yeah.
So,
No,
all right, that was a
it's
lot, but that's what I've
no,
learned. So, like I said,
I
two
love
hours.
that.
Let's keep going. I'll keep going. So,
Well, as a matter of, well, so I asked that question for one because a lot of times, including myself, you start something before you get married, and then all of a sudden you have,
mhm,
you're going to get a family, you're going to get a wife,
you
and
know,
things change in the time that you have even to work on your business. You can't work on your business 12 hours a day. Well, I
nope.
guess you could, but it makes it much more challenging
Yeah.
when you have
Yeah.
a wife and a family and you need to lead them well.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are in that scenario where they don't understand some of the challenges that come with having the blessing of a family and
Hmm.
leading everybody well in that process. One of the things that a mentor of mine says is those people who have had success, he's never met anyone that doesn't have a laundry list of people that have helped them get to where they are today. And
Absolutely.
that and first on the list is probably the spouse, the wife.
Mhm.
And so I would love to have Lori on the podcast at some point.
Yeah.
Seriously, this is I've heard of so many people that have gone through this challenge of you have the immense pressure and stress that business can be, especially through the hard times, and yet you have to show up for your family. And there's people who've lost marriages over this. There's people who have
Oh,
really struggled, and the Lord's
sure.
redeemed. I know personally someone who the Lord has really redeemed, something that I thought was dead, but He brought it back to life, um, because of His grace on
Hmm.
the marriage. And even if the business is not going well,
Hmm.
there's the obligation of the leader to be the leader at home as well. And
Hmm.
so that's hugely important. We'd love to have Lori on if she would want to. I want to hear her perspective on things,
Oh,
as
sure.
well. Maybe some things you left out. Just kidding.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, there's two seats at the table for sure, and there's two different views. Absolutely. But I think I think it's real, and I think for other spouses out there, and that's something Laura and I have talked about too. Is what is God? Why has God given us this opportunity to connect with other business leaders and spouses? My parents did it. There's a podcast you can check out on Impact of Leadership, episode number 69, where my parents and I are interviewed by Steve.
Oh wow.
And they talk about what it was meant to start a business in the basement of our house in Wisconsin. And what did it mean to, have a marriage to support each other? And my mom led a women's ministry that was a full time job. She really was.
Wow.
And so, God, it doesn't mean things are going to always be perfect, but God is faithful and he shows up. And so check out that episode if you want to learn about from my parents' perspective. But
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to live out the next generation. And that's what it's about, paying it forward. So someday, Cooper, you and your wife will be mentoring some other young group. And I just think that's what it's all about, is helping pay it forward and let people see how faithful God is in all of
Absolutely.
it.
And that's really what fires me up, Patrick, is what are we doing moving forward? I strongly believe that God uses entrepreneurship to have can use entrepreneurship to have immense impact. I just went to a talk that was actually at the Impact conference where I believe she said entrepreneurs can have 100 times more
Mhm.
mind share in terms of influence than even a pastor has, and that's because of the when you become that leader that people look to, you have that influence, and that influence, I think if it's not stewarded with God's God's principles and with Him in mind, then it's a huge loss. It's a
Yeah.
huge loss, and I think entrepreneurs, Christian entrepreneurs that believe and practice the principles, the integrity and excellence, that we can not only impact the world in terms of evangelism, but I think it's a vessel for God's common grace, right? Entrepreneurs, they solve
Mm.
problems. Leaders, they inspire others. And I do think God can use it to make the world a better place, and He already has. But that's what we're trying to do here, is to create that movement. And Patrick, I really appreciate you diving into the leadership side of things. I mean, that's just hugely important. You've heard the saying, everyone is in sales.
Mhm.
Every entrepreneur is a leader, and it's something that we have to equip ourselves with. And so I appreciate you going into that. Patrick, I wanna end it with this sort of question. What would be what would be your number one piece of advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, people who are going to or seeking to be in a position in their business where they're going to have to be a leader? What is that number one lesson or thing that you would leave them with? And then finish us off with how can we or where are some other resources that we can learn more about leadership? Talk about IOL and the podcast and the community you have.
Yeah, there's definitely not one magic silver bullet thing that I can tell somebody to like, oh, this one thing will do it all for you. Um, but I will give you a couple things. Number one, I'll set it, get in God's word daily. That's something I wish I would have done earlier in my career, just as a young leader, really, really trusting on God to lead you and direct your path. Um, Number two, I would say surround yourself with key people who are Christians, who are going to hold you accountable, who are going to love you well and point you back to God. Um, and when I say there's a couple of different people, one, it should be your spouse that will be there, and you have to be willing to listen to your spouse because it can be easily where you listen to other people. You need to listen to your spouse. That's why God put you together. But pray together and really pray about the things that you're encountering in business together. Because I do believe I watched my parents do it. Lori and I are doing better at that for sure. But surround yourself with other people. I've been fortunate. I built an executive team, and by God's blessing, all my executives are believers, and we pray before meetings. We That does not mean that things are perfect. It's not. We have a way to work through our conflict in a way that is God honoring, even if we don't do it the first time the right way. And I'll say myself, um, God gives grace and forgiveness, and we seek that with each other. So again, surround yourself with people that have that same mindset of I want to honor the Lord, because if you don't, it can be a very dangerous place where the world will continue to tell you, go get yours. Go don't You don't have to worry about being humble. You deserve this. You should treat yourself to this and give yourself that. And and again, be around people that are gonna help you work through things in a way that's God honoring. So a lot of times people try to figure it out on their own. Like, I'll just do it by myself. Don't do that. Don't do that. Find a mentor or find a group. And I've been fortunate where I have been been able to do both with where people have poured into me. So I think those are my two main big things. One, put time to it with God. You need it, and God will direct you. But number two, surround yourself with other leaders that are Christ focused, and it will make a huge difference in how you treat your employees, how you do your business, and it will hold you accountable. And we all, including myself, need that in our lives.
Patrick, I appreciate your humility and sharing the lessons and stories. And it's been an encouragement to me as somebody who hopefully, I mean, if the Lord decides to bless me to be in a leadership position in that way, I feel like I've been encouraged by your stories in your marriage as well. Patrick, where can our listeners find you and get involved?
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, definitely check out my profile. I'd love to connect with you. Um, and the other thing is you can check out what we do from an IT services at CCB Technology. And then you can also find me at the Impact of Leadership website. There's a podcast you can follow wherever you listen to your podcast. We're not as cool as you, Cooper. We don't have
No.
video, so we're old school, and so we just do audio. But for anybody out there who's interested, please, reach out.
Got some
And
solid stuff over there.
I appreciate it. We just want people to have a place to where they can maybe go, grow, and then hopefully share with others. So it's good.
And do you guys have a community platform?
So we,
Or
we
because I
do.
signed up for something
Yeah.
just recently.
Yeah, you did. I got a notification about that. So No, we have a very, very small community, and that's another thing I guess I would tell anybody in 2019, when we launched this. I thought it was going to be this huge community, and it hasn't. God has not taken us in that direction yet. But I would encourage you to check out the podcast. We have, I think, over 110 blogs that we do. Every other week is a podcast release, and then on the off weeks, it's the blog release. So like this, that just check them out. There's a lot there. And I write some. Steve has written some, and then we have another IOL freelance
Yeah,
employee.
there's someone I saw your LinkedIn today. There's
Yeah,
a blog about
Ashley.
that.
Ashley, yeah,
Yeah,
and she's fantastic. She's so great. So check them out. But I think the biggest thing is just be ready that God might take you in a different direction than you expected, and that's what He's done with CCB and IOL. God has built it in different directions, and so yeah, we're still figuring out who we are and what we're going to be. But God is directing my path right now, and right now I'm just thankful that I'm even here with you. So
right,
there it is, right
right.
there.
That's the verse. Trust
That
the Lord with
is.
all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. So
Yeah.
that's full circle. That's full circle. Patrick, look, it's been great to have you on and hearing your story, y'all. This is Kingdom Commerce, where we do commerce the Kingdom way. We'll see you in the next episode.